very first song, hymn number 396. Let's do the first and last lines of that song.
How many verses are there?
3.
Okay.
First and last. And there's one other thing I failed to mention. I think this is yesterday morning, Michelle Morgan was rebaptized. Are you aware of that? Michelle Morgan. Let us sing. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. None else could heal all our souls' diseases. No, not one. No, not one. Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. There's not an hour that he is not with us. No, not one. No, not one. No night so dark that his love can cheer us. No, not one. No, not one. Jesus knows all about our struggles. He till the day is done. Friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. Hymn number 679. First, second, and last lines of that. 679.
Are there 4 verses?
Yes, ma'am. It's an interesting question. I don't know what the guys are, but don't worry about it. We'll talk about that later. This AI and this old man don't mix too well. 679. It's so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, just to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I prove him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Oh, how sweet to trust in Jesus, just to trust his cleansing word, just in simple blood to cleanse me, neath the healing cleansing blood. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I prove him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. I'm so glad I learned to trust precious Jesus, Savior, friend, and I know that thou art with me, will be with me through the end. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I prove him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. 991. 91. This
crucified the sin. This is my Father's word. I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas. His hand a wondrous wrought. This is my Father's world. The birds their carols raise. The morning light, the lily white, declare their Maker's praise. This is my Father's world. He shines in all that say. In the rustling grass I hear him pass. He speaks to me everywhere. This is my Father's world. Oh, let me never forget that though the road seems all so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is my Father's world. The battle is not done. Jesus, who now shall be satisfied, and earth and heaven be one.
The song after the lesson is 915, hymn number 915. Brother Al.
I said, it don't matter where you sit down. Well, since they already skedaddled out, before we get into Job, Sunday night, she's coming. She's taking her time. You can pass on this message. Sunday night, we're going to start studying on angels. And I gave everybody a chance to put in. Nobody put in anything. So, well, I'll take that back. Somebody did put in about angels. I brought that up one time about studying angels, and somebody said something to me. We have more important things to worry about than angels. And you could go that way. And why do you need to study about angels? Well, let's just think about things. Scripture said that the things that have been revealed to us were things that the angels longed to look into. What does that mean? But, all right, there's a word I'm looking for. It means angels are curious. They want to look into it. They look at us. Some say looks at man and marvels because man has faith. They don't understand. They're curious. Guess what? What are we? Curious. So if they're curious about us and the things that God's shown us, it's only natural we're curious about them. And if we don't try to answer those questions biblically, how will they get answered? Yeah, they get made up in supposition and everything. It's like I've heard people when babies die, well, God needed another angel. That's some thought somebody had somewhere, and are probably even a misunderstanding of the scriptures. But
Angels is a scriptural something.
it is. It's very scriptural, and it's only natural that we kind of wonder about it. So a little bit. So we're going to have the study, and fortunately, I have some material on it, and I'm going to be studying that right with y'all, and I spent this afternoon reading a lot of it, or some of it, and it's probably going to be about 11 lessons, give or take. So we'll see. Anyway, so now Job chapter 2. Ron has an acronym for the Bible. Basic instructions before you leave Earth, before leaving Earth, something like that. Pretty good. And because it fits, and it fits the acronym, but it reminds us that the things that God has given us is for our understanding. It's for our understanding so that we learn how to deal with the things that happen in this life and still be pleasing to Him. That's really what it's all about. For instance, we'll talk about Michelle being baptized again. The conversation that it started was on one thing, and the comment I made was, how can you be taught wrong and baptized right? And in the discussion, and she turned and she goes, well, I have questions about my baptism, went into those details. And my point to her was, here's the reality. If those questions are just because your age and you're not fully remembering that you were doing it right, the only thing we can do by baptizing you again is ensure your salvation. Because that way, all doubt goes away. And if you have reason to doubt, it's solved. If you don't have reason, you're still doing something trying to make sure you're being pleasing to God. That's what we have to realize is that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to ensure we're being pleasing to God. So, starting with Job chapter 2, verse 1, again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. So here is the question. How long was it between the events of chapter 1 and chapter 2? Now, we know what happened to Job in chapter 1 happened in one day. How long? We don't know, nor should we speculate. But what we should realize is this wasn't the next day. When he uses this terminology in the Greek word, the day, the time frame, we will use a phrase today, back in the day. What may mean to back in the day to you is back in the day when you're thinking of versus back in the day when I'm thinking of. So God tells us there was a day, particular day which he knows of, but he has not saw fit to tell us why. Because that isn't important. It isn't important how long between chapter 1 and chapter 2. It could be weeks, months, even longer. What is important is what happens in the chapter. Starting in verse 2. And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? So Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth and from walking back and forth on it. Peter has a comment that Satan walks around like a roaring lion seeking somebody to devour. Hasn't stopped. Been going on for a long time, all the way back to Job. That's all he's doing. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil? And still he holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause. In replying the way he does, Satan literally admits, yes, I've considered Job. I tried to tempt Job. He admit, the point that he tried to tempt him before, he answered that same question the same way in that you built a hedge. I've considered Job. So we can, in our terminology, say Job was on Satan's radar. Who is most of the time on Satan's radar? People following God. Christians, people that are following God. In the Old Testament, it was all those trying to be pleasing. Same thing. People trying to please God are the people on Satan's radar. People even thinking about it. Like Ron prayed for those lost souls that we might have the courage to reach out to them. Yes, let me tell you something. The biggest ones on his radar of the lost are the ones considering getting right with God. And so we have to realize that. And then there's the other point of those who are recently converted. A roaring lion, who does he go after? The strongest of the herd or the weakest of the herd? Children, babes, the young. He catches you in the right moment, he's going to get you. And that's my point about being weak. Well, who's the weakest? Usually of the flock. The young, the newly converted. Oftentimes they don't see. Here is a reality today that we have that comes about as well as of olden times. In the early days of the church, who were the mostly converted? Jews. So what would they bring with them?
Well, the background and an expectation of God to save your covenant.
Well, background and expectation. So they bring in a lot of the ideas from Judaism, right? What was the biggest problem that they had in the early church was Judaizing teachers, those that were still trying to hold the laws of Moses. What happens when people come from other places today when you convert people?
Bring whatever their experiences are, whatever they are.
A lot of the things in this country that happened in the Restoration movement that led to the splitting of the disciples of Christ, the Christian church, and the Church of Christ was ideas that they brought in from the denominations, trying to hold on to them. And we can understand that. And one of the things that probably helped me most when I first went to work with Shoney's was about 3 or 4 weeks after I went there, I said something about Wendy's because that's where I came from. And the general manager took me aside, and much younger than I was, and he looked at me and he goes, "Al, you don't work for Shoney's or for Wendy's anymore." What was he trying to? He said, basically, he's telling me the way we did things at Wendy's went one way, we were going to do them there, and I had to get off that boat and onto the right one. Okay? Sometimes we might have to sit back and, first of all, when you come in here teaching some of these things, we need to examine them in the Bible first, or the idea that they might be right. Because parts of it was wrong to begin with, parts of it different. But going back over here to Job, we get those people. God points out, you incited me against him to destroy him without cause. Does that mean God did wrong in allowing Satan to take those things away?
What was the question?
His statement here, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause, was God wrong in allowing Satan to do all the events of chapter 1?
But it seems to me that God is accepting the responsibility for what happened.
But its real point is,
They also, there's the issue
Yeah, God knew what was going to happen. He knew he would hold to his integrity. So there really wasn't any, God didn't do any unrighteousness in this, because there is no unrighteousness in him. We know that. But here's the reality of it. He didn't even do this. The devil did. He allowed him to do it. And that's what he's talking about. You incited me to do it. But God wasn't tempted. God had already made the plan. God knew that the devil was already going to try and do this when he brought up Job. When he said, have you considered Job? He knew the devil had already been tempted. And here's an important point. Holds fast to his integrity. Present tense. No matter how long this went on, what we closed chapter 1 with, he still held on to his integrity. Where is the measure of your integrity? When everything's going well or when things are going bad? That's the real measure. Yeah, but
it usually shows up.
there you go. My stepdad used to say, funerals will bring out the worst of people and the best of people in people, which is true. But I told him one day after having to do an executive estate, I said, what it really does is reveal who they are.
More people will probably fall when things are going good because they take credit for it, not give the glory.
Well, that's true. Well, in fact, the weakness of people is really in the fact that they only go to him when there's a problem.
Well, in the judges.
Yeah, that's what they did. So there's the point. God's point is that with Job, his integrity was both when everything was going well and when there were issues. Now, so Satan's answered the Lord and said, skin for sin. Yes, all that a man has, he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face. Does that happen?
Every day.
All the time. People do it all the time.